You've probably seen two people use the exact same AI tool and get completely different results. Same access, same model, same blank box. But one person uses it to finish the work. The other uses it to change the level of the work. And from the outside, the difference is easy to miss. They both ask questions.
They both get answers. They both move faster than before. But the smarter user isn't smarter because they ask better. They're smarter because they know what not to hand over. They're deciding which part of the work should belong to the tool and which part still has to belong to them. That's the difference. Not more prompts, not better tricks. A different division of labor between the machine and the mind.
Here's what most people do. They hand over the hardest parts first. The thinking, the direction, the judgment call. Because those are the parts that feel most uncertain, most uncomfortable, most likely to go wrong. And AI handles them smoothly, so it feels like the right move. But here's what gets handed over along with the hard parts. The development of the judgment that comes from doing them. Every time you outsource the decision, the framing, the trade-off, the call that required you to think it through, you miss the repetition that builds the muscle. And the people pulling ahead haven't found better prompts. They've kept the parts that build something in them
and handed the rest to the tool.
Before we begin, if you value quiet, thoughtful content like this, subscribing helps this channel grow and makes it possible to keep creating videos without noise or hype. Thank you for being here. Now, let's begin.
So what does that actually look like? Not in theory, in practice. They give AI the parts that don't require having lived through something. The research, the formatting, the summarizing, the first draft when judgment isn't the main thing. And they keep the parts that do. The framing of the problem, the decision about what matters, the position they're willing to stand behind. Not because they distrust the tool, because they understand that some parts of the work are only valuable if they still came from them. Here's what that division builds. Not just better output, a different kind of capability. Every time you keep the framing, every time you decide what the problem actually is before the tool gives you one, you're building something. Not knowledge, judgment about how to approach things. The kind that comes from having framed enough problems yourself to know which frames tend to hold and which ones tend to collapse under pressure. That's not something you can borrow. It accumulates through doing, through getting it wrong, through noticing when a frame you chose didn't work, and understanding why. And the people who keep making that call, even when AI could make it faster, they're not just getting better results. They're becoming harder to replace. Not because they type differently, because they've kept developing the part of thinking that the tool can assist, but never own.
Here's what's interesting about this. Most people treat AI as a way to do their current work faster. Same job, faster execution. But a small group is using it to do something different. They're using the speed to raise the level of what they attempt. Because when the execution gets faster, when the research, the drafting, the formatting takes a fraction of the time, there's suddenly space for the part that used to get skipped. The harder thinking, the better question, the more honest frame. And that's the shift. Not AI replacing human work. Humans using AI to get to the work that was always worth doing, but rarely got done because execution took up the whole room. The smart users aren't competing with the tool. They're using it to clear the path to the part of the work that's actually theirs.
If this feels familiar so far, not as information, but as something you've been dealing with, we keep a growing collection of prompts, tools, and simple frameworks designed to help you think more clearly, start more easily, and work better in this environment. We add to it over time. Nothing overwhelming, just practical resources you can return to when you need them. If you want access, you will find it in the description. Now, let's continue.
Here's the question that changes how you use it. Not, what can AI do for me? But, what part of this should still be mine? Most people never ask the second one. Not because they don't care, because the first one is always answered immediately. And when a question gets answered immediately, you stop noticing it was a question. But the second question, what part of this should still be mine? That one requires you to know what you're trying to build in yourself, not just what you're trying to produce. And the people who ask it aren't doing something complicated. They're just making the decision before the tool makes it for them. Not rejecting the help, using it differently, in a way that leaves them more capable at the end than they were at the start. The next time you open the tool, which part are you still keeping? The tool isn't the advantage. The advantage is knowing what to do with it and what to keep for yourself. Most people hand over the work and get the output. The smarter ones hand over part of the work and get the output plus something else. A little more clarity about how they think. A little more range in what they can attempt. A slightly sharper sense of where their judgment actually lives. That accumulates. Not dramatically, not all at once. But over time, the gap between someone who used AI to think less and someone who used it to think better becomes hard to close. And there's something underneath this worth going further into. Because it's not just about how you use the tool. It's about what happens when everyone around you starts using it the same way. And what it means in that kind of world to bring something that is still genuinely yours. That's where this goes next.
If you made it this far, it means this topic matters to you. In the next video, we continue building on this with clearer understanding, practical perspective, and ideas you can actually use. Following the channel really helps us keep developing content like this and adding more resources over time. The next video continues from here. You can watch it now.